Hello there and good morning and welcome to this, the WP Builds newsletter number 40, where we cover the WordPress news. This is covering the week commencing the 19th of November 2018, and it was published on Monday the 25th of November 2018. Just before we begin, I hope you managed to make the most of Black Friday. Perhaps you found yourself some good deals out there. I know that there are still a few hanging around. Some of the dates have not yet elapsed on some of those coupons. If you want to go to wpbuilds.com/black, you can check out the dates in each of the little sections. That would be enormously helpful to us. If you chose to use that page, that would be great. Okay, if you go to wpbuilds.com/subscribe, that would be helpful too. And finally, before we begin the news, we actually now have advertising slots, and I'm keen to get an advertiser on for this little news bulletin. So if you go to wpbuilds.com/advertise, you might very well find yourself being mentioned in this newsletter. Right. Let's crack on with the actual news today. So the first one comes from the WP Tavern website, and this was released on the 21st of November. It's called WordPress 5.0 Release Candidate Expected on US Thanksgiving Holiday, despite last-minute pushback from contributors. As we'll find out in a moment, that release candidate did in fact drop. But this article, which is quite a long one, for the WP Tavern, I think, it mentions the fact that there's really a very, very large amount of core contributors who are pushing back, saying this is just not ready. And we've got quotes from lots of those core contributors. We've then got quotes from Matt Mullenweg, sort of rebutting, coming back and trying to ease things a little bit. But essentially it feels like a lot of people are saying, look, let's just wait until January. Let's just ship it when it's ready. There's too many bugs, there's too many problems with it, and we just don't feel that this is sensible to push something which so many people rely on. And obviously this is all centering around Gutenberg and what have you. So if you're interested in this debate and the current state of affairs, it's not technical, it's just simply stating people's opinions, but core contributors' opinions and so on. So the next piece of news is actually on WordPress.org, and this was a couple of days later. This is the 23rd of November, and this is simply called WordPress 5.0 Release Candidate. And it just says, yes, it's out here. We've got it. It is now the actual official release candidate. The problem is that we simply don't really know when this is going to drop. That's the nub of the whole of the last article and this one. There's just no clarity about when this is actually going to become, WordPress core. We've got the release candidate now. I guess what they're hoping to do is just get as many eyeballs on it. It's met all the criteria that it should have met for the number of posts created by Gutenberg and the number of installs and all of that. But there just seems to be too many people saying, look, I'm a developer, and the cycle is I develop, you update Gutenberg, it breaks, I develop, fix, you update Gutenberg, it breaks, and the cycle goes on. So I guess the best thing to do is, if you are keen to make sure WordPress 5.0 is a success, you could go and become a beta tester. There we go. All right, let's move on. This next one, speaking of Gutenberg, this is from the WP Tavern website, but it's about another plugin, another project called Block Lab. And there's a few developers, Rob Stinson, Luke Carbis, and Reinhard Korf, have clubbed together to create this new Gutenberg block creation tool. It reminds me an awful lot, the screenshots and the video that's on their website, it reminds me very, very much of ACF and the way that you create ACF fields in the back end. It looks like that. And then once you've created those, there's far less than ACS has at the moment. I think there's about 6 or 7 different fields. Once you've created those, it then prompts you to go and create a file in your theme. And once that's done, you've got yourself a block which you can style. It's ridiculously simple. It's kind of inspired by the ACF way of doing things. And they're promising that in the future they'll add more fields and add some sort of paid tier. So this might be one to watch, because at the minute it's completely free, and it's called Block Lab. I really like the look of it. You can do things like set an icon and then just add your fields in and you're good to go. So it's a very familiar experience, but it seems to work rather well, so that's great. Okay, this is about a company called Figma Partners. Now, apparently Figma, I've never really used this, but apparently it's design software, design collaboration software. And they've decided to, well, what it says is Figma, an online collaboration interface tool, has donated an organizational membership to the WordPress project. And then the article goes on to explain all about Figma and what it does and how it works. But really the piece of news from the WordPress perspective here is that Figma, this collaborative design tool, has actually donated somebody back to the project. So that's really nice. And I guess they get a little bit of exposure about their software all at the same time. Okay, I'm not going to explain how this next one goes because it's too long and too complicated, but this is an article on the deliciousbrains.com website called An Introduction to WordPress Penetration Testing. I was at WordCamp Manchester, it's probably about 6 weeks ago or something now, and Tim Nash was there. He's the platform lead for 34sp.com. And he was explaining a little bit about penetration testing. And obviously, if you've just got like a little mom and pop website that's of no great significance, you probably don't need to do this. But if you've got an e-commerce site where, literally dollars count, every minute that the site is down, well, the idea of this is that you become your own hacker and you try to bring your site down, and you use tools like WP Scan, like SQL Map, like PHP Stan and Carly, and so on and so forth. And it's just explaining how you might get started doing this. Obviously, if your site is critical, this is probably a very sensible precaution to take, and you use these tools to try and bring it down. And I just thought it was nice that they'd put all of that stuff into this one little article. Now, a little while ago, this isn't necessarily WordPress related, but I kind of feel it is because of its open source nature. A little while ago, when I started using WordPress, going back longer actually, when I was looking around for CMSs, and I chose Drupal and then eventually got to WordPress, there was this one called Expression Engine, which seems to have completely disappeared off the radar. And the news here is just to say that apparently after 16 years, Expression Engine has decided to go open source. They've said, they didn't realize at the time that the licensing model of the GPL was going to become so dominant. And now basically the web is kind of open source. The stack that it's built on and the platforms that runs on it are all open source. And so they've decided to do that. I think they're hoping that at some point it might rejuvenate their community. But at the minute, apparently 0.3% of all websites are using this piece of software. But just nice to see if you've got any of those sites, legacy sites possibly, lying around, you no longer need to pay for the license. Okay. This one is from the wordfence.com website, and it's called XSS Injection Campaign Exploits WordPress AMP plugin. And last week we mentioned that there was this vulnerability in AMP for WP plugin, which could be leveraged, and you could change the user role up to admin. And this explains how that attack is done. Again, I can't possibly in this little article explain it, but if you're into ITsec and how these things can be achieved, and you're just interested in, perhaps you've got this plugin on a site and you want to know what the possible vectors for attack are, well, this article on WordFence will explain that for you. So it's very, very interesting. Okay, Elementor, the page builder, have got a new release out. They've got some new marketing widgets, some of which were sort of nice, compelling. They've got some video demos on their site. The article is called Evergreen Countdown Timer, Star Rating, Reviews and Sitemap, and that kind of sums it up. They've got this Evergreen Timer widget which you can drag in, and essentially whenever a visitor comes to your site, it starts the counter at whatever you've set it. So you could say 12 hours, and every time somebody new comes to the site, they get this 12 hours in order to achieve whatever it is that you're asking them to do. And once that countdown expires, it can then show a completely different message. There's a nice star rating widget and a review widget, as I said, and now a sitemap widget. So if you are an Elementor user, which I know a lot of you are, then this will just add to your marketing stack, and presumably for free because you've already paid for the license. Speaking of page builders, this is a nice one if you're a Beaver Builder user. This is the website dev.bbhero.xyz. It's a massive collection of completely free rows and so on and so forth. I haven't really counted them up, but there seem to be dozens and dozens and dozens of them. It's a very minimal site. For example, if you click on the About page, it just says free templates for Beaver Builder. Note, images and templates are only available in previews and cannot be included in downloaded files. So I don't really know who's behind this and why they're doing it, but it's very nice. It's just completely free Beaver Builder stuff. So if you're a Beaver Builder user and you'd like to check out some additional free rows, they look rather nice. Okay, this is not specifically WordPress, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Ahmed Hawais, the core contributor to WordPress, has released a course this week. It's called, well, the URL is VSCode.pro. And if you've got a kind of text, like an IDE, something like Sublime Text or Coda or, I don't know, PHP Storm or whatever it is that you're using, Ahmed is advocating switching over to VS Code, which is an entirely JavaScript-based IDE. And he's got this brand new course because he says, you know, I've been using it for thousands of hours over the last few years and I've really got my workflow down. There's tons of stuff in there, so go and have a look if you're looking for a new IDE and VS Code is the one that you've sort of settled on as a possibility. Go and check out his course because there's a great chance that you'll learn an awful lot about how to set it up, make it work for you. Okay, thank you for listening to the WP Builds news once again. As I say, I hope you managed to get through Black Friday, but if you're still hunting around for some deals, go to wpbuilds.com/black and /advertise if you would like to have your name mentioned on this little news article. I hope you have a lovely week. Bye-bye.